I was going to get the band together again, but I was the only one that was allowed past the border, so apologies for that. All right, so what I want to talk about is hearing aids and music. Of course, all this information that we talk about now builds on our understanding of physiology, which the first two speakers talked about. But we face some interesting challenges where the hearing system interacts with the brain, memory, performance, cognition, to change potentially what might seem as a simple translation of physiological information at the cochlea caused by hearing loss. So what I want to talk about is to try and identify some of the key differences between music and speech for amplification, learn about how we might go about trying to account for some of these changes and differences, and also have a look at whether there are in fact any differences between musicians and non-musicians in their preference on how they listen to music. So let's have a think about ideal amplification of music versus speech. Now I've got this is a slightly interactive session, so I've got some questions for you. Put your hands up if you believe that the way we should amplify music, the spectrum of music, is going to be similar to the way that we want to amplify the spectrum of speech. Okay, what about loudness, the perception of loudness? Is the perception of loudness of speech going to be similar to music? Okay, not a lot of hands. Either you're saying no, all right, or you're just people that don't put your hands up. All right, so what about peaks? Peaks of speech versus peaks of music. Hands up those that think that they are the same. All right. Well, let's have a look at it. It depends. It depends. And it depends. What about the dynamics of music and speech? Put your hands up if you believe that music has greater dynamics, that has changed from soft to loud, than speech. Okay? About half of you. What about the other way around? So speech has greater dynamics than music. Okay, a smaller number. Well, it depends. All right. But this is an interesting figure I came across in preparing for this talk. This shows dynamics of different pieces of music. Now, in this study, they actually sampled a large number of tracks from iTunes, about 100 different tracks from each of these different genres of music, and then they also had speech and quiet. And on this scale here, we have just a measure of how dynamic the piece of the recording is. So how much changes there during the length of the recording. Perhaps surprising, I thought, rock music had the least dynamics, and speech and quiet the most dynamics. Okay, it's very rare that if you think about a rock song that it's silent at any point. Okay, usually there's something filling in the background. Now this does not show the peaks. What this is showing you is the dynamics, the long-term change in the signal over time. All right? And this perhaps changes some of our thoughts about how we should actually amplify music relative to speech. Now, when we amplify for speech correction, we're very used to using prescriptive procedures. And these are based in part on the long-term average speech spectrum, as well as adjustment for audibility or intelligibility. What are we going to actually do when we amplify music? Because there is no music prescription that is universally agreed upon. Here's a piece of music. It's a bit of 80s dance music called Miami Nights. It's sort of drum machines and synthesizer. And what we have here is its spectrum showing some of the dynamics, the peaks and the soft parts over time. Here I've just put in a high frequency hearing loss just to show that a lot of the high frequency information would not be audible to this person. We go ahead and fit hearing aids to DSL prescription. So this is DSL-IO version 4, I think it was, and here we have NAL nonlinear 2. Now, I put this up mainly to show you what the hearing aid is doing. We're seeing this amplification in the high frequencies, making some of the high frequencies more audible. But what you should also notice is the change in the range from loud to the less intense parts of music, that gets squished when we fit to a non-linear fitting procedure. So is that good or bad? This is also from that earlier study where I showed the average spectrum from iTunes. And what this study looked at was comparing a linear fitting procedure to a NAL nonlinear 2 prescription, providing compression, and then something in between. All right, so what we have here, this is not an input-output curve, this is a gain curve showing for the linear procedure as intensity increases, it's providing the same amount of gain, the same amount of amplification. The non-linear procedure, as we increase the intensity of sound, it provides less amplification. Right? This is what we're typically doing when we're fitting hearing aids for speech. Across a number of different scales, looking at the quality of the music, what was found is that across all the different measures, quality, the dynamics, perception of the quiet and loud parts of the music, and the overall loudness of the music, that the linear prescription was preferred above that which was semi-compressive and the NAL nonlinear 2 prescription. So the conclusions of this study was that we should not be fitting hearing aids using the NAL nonlinear 2 prescription if we want to have good music quality. Now on to some studies that my group have undertaken. This is a study comparing wide dynamic range compression from a market-leading hearing aid to a different form of level-dependent amplification, which is called ADRO. Now adaptive dynamic range optimization doesn't compress the signal. It is a form of linear amplification, but the linear amplification changes depending on some fuzzy logic rules, depending on what the environment is. What we wanted to see was whether this largely linear procedure would provide superior results to wide dynamic range hearing aid fitting. These are all experienced hearing aid wearers. Now, quite often with different music research, we like to try different music genres because, again, going back to that spectral chart, these different types of music all behave in different ways. So when we talk about a music program, let's be clear that we are talking about a program for a type of music, not all music. And when you set a music program, you're making decisions on what that type of music is that the hearing aid is going to perform to. So we looked at Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, some jazz, and a song from Eric Clapton's Behind the Sun, which was She's Waiting, which has typical electric guitar and vocals, piano and horns and orchestral music. Now, in this particular study, the agro processing, the more linear processing, was preferred over the compressing signal across all the different genres. We look at the signals and perhaps get an idea. Oh, this is just showing individual difference. The other thing that I think one of our later speakers is going to be talking about is the benefits of fine-tuning. Just as with listening to speech, every person has their own ideal for music. And this is based on a lifetime of listening to that music and the ways that you have listened to it. And so we do see a great deal of variability between individuals here for these different pieces of music. But in this study, the agro overall was preferred. Why? There's a number of things here that are playing parts, and it's very difficult to piece out exactly the most important part that is contributing to music listening preference. But one of the differences that people subjectively reported on was they felt that the compression was, perhaps quite understandably, squeezing the signal. It didn't have the same range that they actually wanted to listen to. In the case of the jazz, there was a particular piece of horn that was played. We can see how compressed that is with wide dynamic range compression. But in the case of the more linear amplification, how we have this difference between the baseline recording. And the vocal component, I'm not going to sing it, but these particular parts, you keep pretending not to care, but I will hear you sing a different song, all right? And these elements here, you can see how compressed they are, all right, with wide dynamic range compression, whether the dynamics are preserved with the more linear amplification. So this seems to be contributing to listening preference. What about manufacturers' music programs? All right, so typically when we fit a hearing aid, what we're initially concerned about, we have our prescription, we fit our hearing aid to that for audibility and intelligibility of speech. Then typically what we do is we may ask the person, do you like listening to music? We may not ask much more than that. They say, yes, I like music. All right, we're going to have a music program there, and we default to whatever the manufacturer's music program actually is. And probably beyond that, we don't really look at what that program actually is. But as I said before, that music program is going to be developed on the basis of what that manufacturer thinks the individual is going to be listening to. All right? And that may not be the case. So what we did is we undertook a study with the same hearing aids from a leading brand manufacturer, and we compared the speech program, the music preferences in the speech program, to the music preferences in the music program. We looked at, again, 3 genres of music. We thought some non-Western music might be interesting to see. Some classical music, Four Seasons, and Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. What was surprising was that on average, people in our study preferred music through the manufacturer's speech program over their music program. All right? All we did was set the hearing aid up for speech, turned on the music program. So we didn't manipulate the music program. So here is something, perhaps take-home message, is when you fit the music program, have the person have some music that they can listen to in the clinic, because the music program may not be set up the way that they want to listen to music. Now, if we have a look at this, We did not find any difference between musicians and non-musicians. All right? We thought there might be some difference there, believing that that musicians would be more critical. They weren't. All right? People had clear preferences. There was no evidence of any difference in effective setting whether individuals did or did not have a hearing loss. So we had a group with normal hearing where we were playing the hearing aids back through with a flat spectrum. There was no difference in the overall quality of sound and the rating depending on the type of music. However, when it came to distortion and people's self-report of distortion, there were some differences. We see that for Vivaldi, so classical music, right, the music program did slightly better than the speech program. For rock, it was the opposite, and for traditional Indian music, it was about the same. Now, this may make more sense when we think about the fact that this is vocals and this is not, and this type of music is generally what manufacturers are going to be thinking about when they're programming for a music channel, particularly if it is a program that automatically switches between speech and music and applies some rules. Okay? It's not likely to be predicting that there's going to be speech present or vocals present. When we look at the degree of hearing loss, also there seems to be a bit of an effect here where those people with normal hearing preferred the music program, while those people with mild hearing loss preferred the speech program. So, in summary for this talk, this is my take-home message, which perhaps isn't that particularly helpful. All right? It depends. So, when you are seeing a person that enjoys music, you need to understand what that music is. Is it a particular type of music, or are they a music lover in general? When you actually set a program up for music, you should have that music available to you, hopefully, that you can play over a speaker in the clinic, or that they can stream to their hearing aids, or they're going to go home and then they're going to come back and they're going to report on those preferences. It may require you having multiple music programs depending on what the person's listening preferences are. But as a general rule, the weight of evidence beyond just the small amount of work that we have done suggests that more linear processing or lack of processing is probably better. Fewer channels if wide dynamic range compression. The music program has limitations. There are some genre-specific needs, but I think that individual listening preferences probably trump those. So we should be encouraging our patients to listen to music, to enjoy it. It's going to be good for the hearing part of their brain, but let's understand that for them to fully enjoy this, that we can't apply generic rules to the fitting of hearing aids for music. A lot more to understand in the future. So thank you to BAA for this opportunity for this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.